Dawn didn't arrive like a sunrise. It arrived like a deadline. The private airfield sat outside the city like a secret kept by money. Low buildings, quiet fences, cameras that pretended not to exist, and a runway that looked too clean to belong to the real world. Miles Carter watched the place from a dark rental car parked on a side road, engine off, breath slow. He didn't blink much. He didn't move fast. He kept his hands steady because the machine always looked for trembling. Agent Mallory Grant sat beside him, calm as steel, eyes locked on the hangar line. Graham Holt wasn't in the car. He never was. He was positioned behind a maintenance shed with a clear view of the jet row, the access gate, and the service lane that fed the hangars like veins. And somewhere inside that airfield, a recording was waiting to launch. Not a file, a weapon. A mother's voice, names spoken calmly, like keys turning in locks. If it hit the internet under Vale's timing, the machine would flood doubt before truth could settle. The public would argue, the smear would surge, and Sophia would become visible again. Grant spoke quietly. "This is not a chase," she said. "This is a choke point." Miles nodded. On his tablet, the countdown timer glowed in cold numbers. Release scheduled, 3:40 a.m. Time now, 2:58 a.m. 42 minutes, and Vale's jet was already warmed, already staged, already pointed at the horizon like an exit. Miles didn't look at the timer again. He looked at the hangars. Hangar 9. He saw the private jet's tail through gaps between vehicles. Sleek, silent, expensive enough to make rules feel optional. Grant's voice stayed calm. "Rourke will be there," she said. Miles didn't ask how she knew. Rourke went where the weapon went. Always. Graham's voice came through the earpiece, low. Gate activity. 2 vehicles entering service lane, black SUV and a white utility van. Grant's jaw tightened slightly. "The van is the node," she said. Miles's throat tightened. The upload device. The handler's pocket. The thing that turned truth into timed chaos. Miles whispered, "If we stop the van, we stop the upload." Grant nodded. "And if we stop the jet, we stop the exit," she said. Miles stared at the runway. They couldn't do both with force. Force was messy. Messy was what Vale wanted. Vale didn't fear evidence. Vale feared clean documentation. And Vale feared choices he couldn't control. Grant's phone buzzed. A secure message from the protection detail. "Sophia safe. Tail detected earlier. Lost in traffic. No breach." Grant exhaled slowly. Then she spoke, quiet. "He's still trying to touch the child," she said. Miles didn't reply. His mind was in the airfield, because the airfield was where the machine ended stories. Grant opened a plain folder on her lap. Inside was a printed maintenance work order, a gate pass, a vendor badge, a language the airfield obeyed automatically. "We go in as vendors," Grant said. "We don't run. We don't stare. We don't rush. We become boring." Miles nodded once. The machine hated boring. Boring meant no emotion to manipulate. Grant handed him a cap. Miles put it on. They stepped out of the car and began walking toward the service gate with a rolling case between them. Not a weapon, not dramatic, a normal case. A human wrapper. The gate had a keypad and a camera. A guard stood behind glass, half bored. Grant approached with the work order. "Morning," she said politely. "Emergency compliance check. Aviation security relay. We were called in." The guard blinked. "Called by who?" Grant gave a name. Not Vale. Not Rourke. A vendor manager name from the invoices Miles had validated earlier. A real name. The guard nodded slowly, already surrendering to routine. He scanned the paper. He scanned the badge. He scanned Grant's face. Grant smiled like she belonged. The gate clicked. They entered. Inside, the air smelled like fuel and cold metal. The runway lights hummed faintly. The hangars sat like closed mouths. Miles forced himself not to look at the jet immediately. A fast look was a signal. He looked at the ground, at the path, at the work order in his hand, like a man paid to care about paperwork. Grant walked beside him, calm. Graham's voice came through. "I'm inside perimeter," he said. "I have line on Hangar 9 and the van." Miles's pulse tightened. Grant whispered, "Copy." They moved along the service lane. A white utility van sat near Hangar 7, with its rear doors open. Two men in jackets stood beside it, not talking much, scanning like they were trained to see threats that weren't obvious. And then Miles saw him. Damien Rourke. He stood near Hangar 9, hands relaxed, posture calm, eyes empty. The same professional emptiness. The same ring. Even from a distance, the ring caught the runway light in a faint glint. Miles felt his chest tighten. Grant didn't look at the ring. She looked at the timing. Rourke lifted his phone and checked it. Then he looked toward the van. He was coordinating. The node and the jet were synchronized. Grant's voice stayed calm. "Miles," she said quietly. "We split." Miles nodded. Grant continued. "You go for the van," she said. "I go for Rourke." Miles swallowed. "That's a trap," he whispered. Grant replied, "Everything here is a trap. We choose the ones that leave fingerprints." Miles moved toward the van, pushing the rolling case like he belonged. He kept his face neutral. He kept his pace steady. A man near the van looked up, eyes narrow. "Who are you?" the man asked. Miles held up the work order. "Compliance," he said simply. "Relay check." The man frowned. "We didn't call anyone." Miles didn't argue. He pointed at the van's rear. "Then you have a problem," he said calmly. "Because that device is broadcasting on a restricted channel." The man's eyes flicked to the rear doors. That flick was a confession. Miles stepped closer, still calm. "I can fix it fast," he said. "Or the tower logs it, and everyone gets questions." The man hesitated. Because questions were expensive. Miles leaned in slightly. "This is a quiet fix," he said. "Quiet." The word hit the air like a shadow. The man's jaw tightened. He stepped aside. "2 minutes," he said. Miles nodded. He rolled the case to the van, opened it, and revealed a small forensic device, clean, compact, designed for this. He didn't plug anything yet. He looked inside the van. There it was, a small black unit with a red indicator light, wired to a portable uplink, a node, a timed trigger. Miles's fingers moved carefully. He connected his device. A waveform appeared on his screen, not playing audio, just showing a live packet stream. Upload pending. Schedule locked. He saw the file label. Final warning, master. Miles's stomach dropped. Grant's voice came through, calm. "I see Rourke," she said. "He's moving." Miles whispered, "He's sinking the launch." Grant replied, "Then you stop the launch." Miles's fingers moved faster. He searched for a pause toggle like he had in the hotel corridor. There was no toggle. This system was different. It was designed to resist interruption. Miles frowned, heart pounding. He found a setting. Auto retry. A loop. The machine had built redundancy. If he paused it, it would restart. If he killed it, it would trigger a failsafe. Miles exhaled slowly. He needed a cleaner cut. He looked at the portable uplink. A simple solution sat in front of him, not a hack. A physical truth. A cable. He could pull the uplink cable, but pulling a cable was visible. Visible was confrontation. Confrontation was messy. Miles glanced toward the men. They were watching. Their posture had shifted. They were no longer bored. They were alert. Miles spoke calmly. "This is worse than I thought," he said. The man frowned. "What does that mean?" Miles kept his voice flat. "It means this isn't a relay," he said. "It's an unauthorized stream." The man's eyes narrowed. Stream of what? Miles held his gaze. You don't want to know, he said. The man stiffened. The second man took a half step forward. Miles felt the tension sharpen. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. One sentence appeared on the lock screen. If you touch the cable, the child becomes public. Miles felt ice fill his chest. He didn't move. He didn't blink. He let the message sit like poison. Grant's voice came through, tight. Miles? Miles whispered, threat. Child leverage. Grant's voice turned hard. They don't have her, she said. They have the idea of her. Miles swallowed. But the idea was enough. The internet didn't need a child in hand. It only needed a rumor, a leak, a face, a name. Miles's fingers hovered over the cable. He didn't pull it. He needed a cut that looked like a technical fault. A boring failure. Miles scanned the device settings again. He found it. A bandwidth limit configuration. He could throttle the uplink so low that the upload would fail repeatedly without triggering the failsafe. A slow choke, not a slash. Miles adjusted the number. The upload status flickered. It tried. It slowed. It failed. It tried again. It slowed again. It failed again. The red light blinked. Amber. Warning. Miles felt a cold satisfaction. He hadn't broken it. He had made it useless. Now the machine had to choose. Fix the node or board the jet. Grant's voice came through. Rourke just looked at the van, she said. He felt it. Miles whispered, good. Then the man beside the van leaned closer, voice low. What did you do? He said. Miles kept his face neutral. I stabilized it, he lied. The man's eyes hardened. That's not what I'm seeing. Miles didn't answer. The man reached toward the uplink. Miles moved instantly, not with violence, but with position. He blocked the reach. The man's jaw clenched. Move, he said. Miles spoke quietly. If you touch it, it triggers audit logs, he said. You do not want that. The man stared. Miles held his gaze. Then the man stepped back slightly, cursed under his breath, and pulled out a phone. He began typing fast. Calling the handler. Grant's voice cut in. He's accelerating, she said. Rourke is coming. Miles's pulse spiked. He glanced toward Hangar 9. Rourke was walking toward the van with that calm pace, like time belonged to him. The ring glinted again. Grant stepped into view from the side lane, moving toward Rourke's path like she was just another worker. She didn't approach like an agent. She approached like a donor, like a woman with access. Rourke looked at her, eyes empty. Grant smiled politely. Damien, she said softly. Rourke paused. His eyes narrowed by a millimeter. You shouldn't be here, he said. Grant's smile stayed calm. I go where the truth goes, she replied. Rourke glanced toward the van again, sensing the node's failure. Grant watched his gaze. You felt it, she said. Rourke's voice stayed flat. Leave, he said. Grant stepped closer, voice still calm. You moved a witness into a clinic, she said. You tried to wrap a hostage in care. Rourke's eyes stayed cold. And you brought a child to a clinic, he said softly. Grant's smile vanished. Do not, she said. Rourke's voice was quiet. You keep saying invisible, he said. Nothing stays invisible. Grant's jaw tightened. You're wrong, she said. A ring stays visible. Rourke's eyes flicked downward for half a second. Then back up. Grant held up her phone. Not with a photo, with a zoomed shot from the clinic corridor. The ring, the crescent scratch. The lighting was clear. The ring was unmistakable. Grant's voice was steel. You were identified, she said, by the one witness you thought you could use. Rourke didn't flinch, but something in his posture tightened. Grant saw it. Your problem, she said, is that rings don't lie. Rourke leaned closer, voice low. And recordings can be edited, he said. Grant didn't argue. She said the line that mattered. Not the upload logs, she replied. Rourke's eyes hardened slightly. Because he understood. Upload logs were procedure. Procedure was harder to rewrite than stories. Miles watched from the van, heart pounding. He had throttled the uplink. Now the machine would react. Rourke's phone buzzed. He looked down. His eyes tightened. He glanced toward the hangar, then back to Grant. He spoke softly. "You're late," he said. Grant replied, "No, you're early." Rourke's gaze sharpened. Then he turned away from Grant, walking toward the van. Grant moved with him, matching his pace, staying close enough to be inconvenient. Rourke reached the van. He glanced at the node. The amber light blinked. He looked at Miles. Then he looked at the two men beside the van. He didn't ask questions. He didn't demand explanations. He simply stepped closer to the device and touched the uplink settings with practiced fingers. Miles watched his hands. No tremor, no hesitation. Rourke had done this before. He wasn't just a handler. He was an operator. Rourke's eyes narrowed as he saw the bandwidth throttle. He looked up at Miles, calm. "You're clever," he said. Miles kept his face neutral. "I'm compliant," he said. Rourke's mouth tightened faintly. "You're also in the wrong room," he said softly. Then Rourke made a small adjustment. He raised the bandwidth cap. The upload attempted again. It surged. The red light blinked. Red. Active. Miles felt cold panic push up. Grant's voice came through, sharp. "Miles, stop it." Miles moved fast, fingers flying. He rethrottled. Rourke adjusted again. They were in a silent tug of war, not with fists, with numbers. And the machine was faster because it had rehearsed. Miles realized something brutal. He couldn't win by throttling. Rourke would always counter. He needed a different weapon. Not technical, human. Miles looked at the two men beside the van. They weren't operators. They were paid hands. Paid hands feared consequences. Miles spoke calmly, loud enough for them to hear. "This node is broadcasting an illegal audio file tied to a protected witness," he said. The men froze. Rourke stopped adjusting for half a second. Miles continued. "If it launches, the investigation trace goes back to this van," he said. "To your hands, to your phones, to your faces." One man's eyes widened. "You're lying," he said. Miles shook his head slowly. "You think this is politics," he said. "It's evidence distribution, and you're standing next to it." The men looked at each other. Rourke's eyes hardened. He leaned closer to Miles. "Stop talking," he said quietly. Miles held his gaze. "No," he said. Rourke's voice remained calm. "Then you force me," he said. Miles felt the air tighten. Grant's voice came through. "Graham," she said. Graham's voice replied instantly. "On your left." A maintenance vehicle rolled into the lane, driven by Graham, looking perfectly ordinary. He parked it in a way that blocked the van from backing out quickly. A subtle cage. Rourke glanced at the vehicle. His posture tightened again. Now the machine had friction. Rourke looked at Grant. Grant's eyes stayed hard. "You have a choice," she said. "Fix the upload or board the jet." Rourke's face stayed calm. "You think there's a choice," he said. Grant stepped closer. "There is always a choice," she replied. "You just hate when you don't control it." Rourke's phone buzzed again. He looked down. Then his eyes flicked toward Hangar 9. A door was opening. A figure stepped out. Gideon Vale. He looked calm. Silver hair, neat. A coat that didn't belong to airports but did belong to rooms where people applauded. Vale walked toward the jet stairs with unhurried confidence. He was leaving. The machine was choosing exit. Grant saw it. "Miles," she said softly. "He's boarding." Miles's throat tightened. They had to stop the upload. Now, Rourke stepped back from the node and began walking toward Vale. The two men beside the van tensed, unsure. Grant moved after Rourke. Miles stayed at the van, fingers still on the settings, eyes on the device. He watched the upload status. Active, active, Active. He had to cut it. Miles's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time, a photo. Sophia's school record. Her name highlighted. Her city. A threat shaped like a leak. Miles felt ice in his veins. They didn't have her, but they had enough to destroy invisibility. Miles closed his eyes for half a second. Then he did the only clean thing left. He turned the uplink off. Not by pulling the cable, by toggling the power on the battery pack. A silent kill. The upload stopped instantly. The red light died. The device beeped once, like a quiet scream. Miles's breath caught. Then the node screen flashed. Failsafe initiated. Miles's stomach dropped. A failsafe. He had feared it. The system began rebooting. Autonomous. It would relaunch in minutes. Miles scanned for a cancel. None. He looked for a delay. A timer. There was one. Auto retry in 90 seconds. Miles's fingers moved quickly. He could not cancel, but he could misdirect. He changed the destination address, not to a public platform, to a dead-end point, a void. The node would upload into nothing. It would think it succeeded. The machine would be blind for a moment. Miles hit save. The timer reached 0. The upload restarted. The red light blinked. Then it steadied. Green. Completed. Miles felt his chest tighten. The node believed it had launched, but it had launched into darkness. A fake success. The best kind of failure. Miles exhaled slowly, hands shaking only after it was done. Grant's voice cut in. "Miles," she said, "status." Miles whispered, "Dead endpoint. It thinks it posted. It didn't." Grant exhaled. "Good," she said. Now the machine would discover the truth too late. Vale was already near the jet stairs. Rourke walked beside him. Grant moved into the lane between them and the jet. Calm, but direct. Vale paused. He looked at Grant like she was a minor inconvenience. Then he smiled warmly. "Agent Grant," he said, "you look tired." Grant's voice stayed calm. "You look exposed," she replied. Vale's smile didn't break. "Exposure is a story," he said. Grant raised her phone, screen visible. On it was the ring photo, the crescent scratch. She didn't show it to Vale for proof. She showed it to make him understand what the public could see. Vale's eyes flicked to it, then away. He smiled. "Children see patterns in clouds," he said softly. Grant didn't argue. She spoke a sentence like a blade. "The upload didn't launch," she said. Vale's smile tightened by a fraction. Rourke's eyes narrowed. Grant continued. "And we have your clinic relay logs," she said, "and Rourke's ring ID, and the movement record for Mara." Vale's eyes stayed calm, but the air changed. Because the machine hated documentation. Vale's voice was still warm. "You think paper ends men like me," he said. Grant replied, "No. People end men like you. Paper just tells them where to look." Vale stepped closer, smile thin now. "And where are they looking?" he asked. Grant leaned in slightly. "At the ring," she said quietly. Rourke's jaw tightened. Vale's eyes flicked toward Rourke. A private exchange. A silent command. Rourke stepped forward, calm, and extended a hand. Not with violence. With a small device. The upload node's twin. A backup. He was prepared. Rourke's voice was quiet. "There are always two," he said. Miles's stomach dropped. Grant's eyes hardened. Vale smiled faintly. "You thought you found the only match," he said. "I keep a second one in my pocket." Grant's voice stayed steady. "Then you keep it," she said. "And you keep your fingerprints." Vale's smile widened slightly. "I keep whatever I want," he said. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced down. His eyes tightened. A message from his own team. "Upload confirmed." Vale looked up, satisfied. Grant stared at him. "You think it launched?" she said. Vale smiled. "I know it launched," he replied. Grant didn't flinch. You launched into nothing, she said calmly. Dead end point. For the first time, Vale's warmth cracked. Not much. A millimeter. The same millimeter the team had learned to hunt. Rourke's eyes narrowed. Vale glanced toward the van, then toward the runway lights. He understood he had been delayed. And delay was the enemy of control. Grant's voice stayed calm. Your problem, she said, is that you can't verify fast without exposing your node. Vale's smile returned, thinner. You underestimate money, he said. Grant replied, you overestimate silence. Vale stepped closer, voice soft. You have a child, he said quietly. Grant's eyes went cold. She is invisible, Grant said. Vale smiled. No, he said softly. She is inevitable. Miles felt his stomach drop. Vale leaned closer to Grant and spoke so only she could hear. If you stay here, I make her famous, he whispered. Grant didn't blink. If you leave, Vale continued, I let the mother remain a rumor. Grant stared at him. A choice. A trap shaped like mercy. Grant's voice stayed calm. You don't get to bargain with children, she said. Vale's smile didn't break. I already do, he said. Then Vale stepped toward the jet stairs. Grant moved, blocking. Rourke stepped closer. Graham's voice came through. More vehicles entering perimeter, he said. 2 SUVs. Grant's jaw tightened. The machine was bringing teeth. Grant looked at Miles. Miles, she said quietly, do you have a copy of the file? Miles swallowed. I have a partial packet capture, he said. Enough to prove authenticity. Grant nodded. Then we publish first, she said. Miles's chest tightened. Publish? He whispered. Grant's eyes hardened. Not the full audio, she said. The metadata, the logs, the ring, the relay. We publish proof, not trauma. Miles understood. You didn't need the mother's voice to go viral. You needed the proof that the machine had tried to weaponize it. Grant raised her phone and began typing a secure transmission to oversight, and the press liaison restricted, verified, chain of custody flagged. Vale saw it. His smile vanished. Stop, he said quietly. Grant didn't stop. Rourke stepped forward. His hand moved subtly. A signal. One of the SUVs near the gate accelerated. The airfield siren began to wail. Not a comforting siren. A warning siren. The same sound that had started this entire arc. Miles felt cold clarity. This was the moment. The machine was willing to make a scene if it meant controlling the exit. Grant's eyes stayed calm. Graham, she said. Graham replied, ready. Grant looked at Miles. Now, she said. Miles tapped send. The proof package transmitted. Relay logs, upload node identifiers, dead endpoint confirmation, ring photo with timestamp, movement log from St. Alder, donor plaque documentation, chain of custody signatures, not emotion, facts. Then Grant stepped back from Vale and spoke clearly, loud enough for cameras and staff to hear. This man is fleeing with a weaponized recording, she said, and his handler is identified. Vale's head snapped toward her. The warm mask was gone. For the first time, he looked like what he was, a man whose power depended on silence. People began turning. A ground crew worker looked up. A pilot paused at the stairs. A phone lifted. Phones were sunlight. Vale hated sunlight. Rourke's eyes scanned the faces. He was calculating. Then Vale did something unexpected. He smiled again. Not warm. Sharp. He leaned toward Rourke and whispered something. Rourke nodded once. Then Rourke turned toward Miles. His voice was calm. You like boring failures, he said. Miles stared, throat tight. Rourke continued. So I'll give you a boring success, he said. Then Rourke raised the backup node and pressed a button. A green light blinked. A second upload began. Miles's stomach dropped. Grant's eyes hardened. The machine had redundancy. Always. Grant moved fast, but not frantic. She stepped toward Rourke and spoke one sentence, loud. "Show your ring," she said. Rourke paused. "A millimeter." Grant continued, louder. "Show the ring the child identified," she said. The ground crew looked. The pilot looked. A phone zoomed. Rourke's ring glinted in the runway light. And in that moment, the handler became a person, not a shadow, not a rumor. A man with a ring, a man with a mark, a man with a fingerprint. Rourke's calm tightened. Vale's jaw clenched, because now the upload didn't matter as much. If the public saw the handler, the machine's invisibility cracked. Grant didn't stop. She pointed at the jet. "And that plane," she said, "is not an exit. It's a confession." Vale's smile broke completely. "Enough," he snapped. The warm donor voice was gone. Now he sounded like power. The pilot froze. People hesitated, because nobody wanted to be part of a crime that became a headline. Vale stepped toward the stairs anyway. Rourke moved with him. The SUVs moved closer. Graham's voice came through. "They're closing. We extract." Grant's eyes met Miles'. "We leave," she said. Miles swallowed. "But Vale," Grant cut him off. "We already got the proof," she said, "and we already broke his timing." Miles's chest tightened. "And the child?" "What?" Grant's eyes were steel. "We keep her invisible," she said. "We don't trade her for a cinematic arrest." Miles understood. A clean win wasn't always the loud win. Sometimes it was the win that survived. Grant and Miles turned and walked away calmly, not running. Running looked like guilt. They moved toward the service lane where Graham had staged the maintenance vehicle. Behind them, Vale climbed the first step of the jet stairs. Then his phone buzzed again. Vale glanced down. His expression tightened. Not anger, alarm. Because the proof package had landed. The world was about to look. Vale paused. Rourke paused. For the first time, the machine hesitated. And hesitation was weakness. Grant reached the maintenance vehicle. Graham opened the door. "Go," he said. They entered. The vehicle rolled out, ordinary. Another boring wrapper. The best disguise. As they cleared the gate, Miles's phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. A message. "You made me hesitate." That was expensive. Miles felt cold settle. Grant stared forward. "What does it say?" she asked. Miles whispered. He noticed. Grant nodded once. "Good," she said. "Then he'll move fast, and fast creates mistakes." Miles stared at the sunrise, finally breaking. Not warm, not comforting, just light. Grant spoke the final line like a promise. "EP-14, she said, "is the mistake." Miles swallowed. "And what mistake is that?" Grant's eyes hardened. "The moment Vale tries to make Sophia public," she said, "and we make him regret it." Miles felt the next chapter form clean, sharp, inevitable, because now the machine had lost something it could never buy back. Time.